Hello everyone, I am Marios Poulas from the University College London, and for the next 15 minutes I'm gonna give you a tutorial introducing simple R functionality and generation of variables, vectors and matrices. But first let me share the screen with you so that will be easier for you to see what I am doing. Let's start with the variables. First of all, using the hashtag symbol allows us to write comments, and I will be using the hashtag symbol to give you the titles of each section. Variables first. To get you started, let us first see how to introduce variables. It is very similar to assigning values to variables in MATLAB, but we just use a different sign. Instead of using the equal sign, we can use this sign here. To execute the code, you can either click on the Run button here, or put your cursor on that line that you want to execute and press Command Enter. And that's what I will just do. After pressing Command Enter, you can see here under in the console that the line that was executed. In order to see the variable A, what does the variable A contains, you can execute just the name of the variable by pressing again Command Enter, and going down to console, you can see that variable A contains number 2. Once you have assigned values to more than one variable, you can work with the variables to do calculations, for example, and create new variables. Let us first assign other numbers to other variables, let's say 10 for example, and by pressing again Command Enter, we execute that variable. Let us check. We can see now that variable B contains number 10. And now that we've got two variables with assigned numbers, we can do any calculation that we want. Let's say, let's do a multiplication. By pressing again Command Enter, we can see that 2 times 10 equals to 20. We can do additions, executing by pressing down Command and Enter. We can see that 2 plus 10 equals 12. That's really easy for you. And let's move on to more difficult calculations, such as the power. So let's say 10b to the power of 2, for example. Pressing Command Enter, we can see that the power of 10 equals to 100. We can create now a new variable, let's say a variable called C, by executing a calculation using two previous variables, A minus B, for example. So if I press down Command Enter now, the result will be assigned into variable C. And by executing variable C, I can see that number minus 8, because 2 minus 10 equals to minus 8, is now assigned into variable C. moving on to the next section, using again hashtag to give the title, vectors. We are going to proceed to the vectors, and let us clear the screen on the console first. So, to create a vector, a one-dimensional collection of numbers, we can use the C operation that stands for combine. So what we have to do is to use combine function and give some numbers, let's say 12, 23, 45, 67, so on. And we can also assign that one to a new variable, x. So now variable x will contain a vector with the numbers 12, 23, 45, and 67. By pressing again down command and enter, I execute this, and let us check. Now in the console window, you can see that the numbers 12, 23, 45, and 67 are contained within variable x. We can also access individual elements of the vector by using the square brackets, those, and the number of the element, of the position of that element. So the first element of the vector will be 12, and that's what we can see here. The fourth element, for example, of x is number 67, as you can see in the console. What we can also do is if we try to access an element of a vector that is that does not exist, the answer that we will get is non-applicable. In order to get a number there, we can assign the number to element number 5 to the fifth element of vector x. We can assign a number, let's say 98. By executing this variable, we can see that the fifth element of vector x equals to 98. And now we can again execute this just to see the fifth element of x. And as you can see in the console, number 98 has been assigned in the fifth element of vector x. We can also execute calculations using different elements of a vector, such as the second element plus the third element of vector x. By executing this, we can see that the second element has been added to the third element, and here's the result. We can also combine different vectors into a new vector. So let us create first of all two vectors. So what I'm doing now is using the combine function to create a new vector containing numbers 1, 2, 3. Execute that one. And I'm creating another vector called b using the combine function again to have 4, 5, and 6 numbers in assigned in that vector. What we can do now is to assign, to create a new vector containing the two previous vectors by using the combine function again, and A and B, which are the two previous sections, separated by a comma. By executing this, let us check the answer now. So we can see that 1, 2, and 3 from vector A and 4, 5, 6 from vector B have been assigned all together in a new vector with the name X. We can also generate integer sequences using the colon operator, just as in MATLAB. So what we can do here is to assign in vector X numbers from 1 to 15, for example. Executing that line, and we can see that numbers from 1 to 15 have been assigned in vector X. To find the size of that vector, we can use the built-in function length. So by using length in X, by executing that function, we can see that the length of vector X equals to 15. That means it contains 15 numbers. One extremely useful aspect to R is the concept of element-wise operations. We can do calculations like addition, subtraction, or multiplication of vectors element-wise. So we can now add A to B. Remember first that A equals to 1, 2, 3, and B equals to 4, 5, 6. So by executing A plus B, we can see that 1 plus 4 equals to 5, 2 plus 5 equals to 7, 3 plus 6 equals to 9. It adds the element-wise the two vectors. We can do all the types of calculations, such as multiplication or subtraction, and so on. Moving to the next section, I will first use hashtag to give you the title, which will be the matrices. So in MATLAB, in R, we can generate matrices using the matrix operation. And in order to define the matrix, we have to give the number of rows equal to 3, for example, the number of columns equals to 4, for example, and then we will need to define the data, which data are going to be present in the matrix. Let us use the combine function to generate those data, and let us give data from 1 to 12, and we can assign the new matrix into variable with the name M. Executing that line, we can see that we have generated a new matrix with 3 columns, with 3 rows and 4 columns, with the numbers from the data assigned in the matrix by column. That means 1, 2, 3 in the first column, 4, 5, 6 on the second column, and so on. To assign numbers in matrix by row, we can use the same syntax, but we have to specify that it will be by row equals true. And now by executing that line and seeing the variable m, we can see that m now contains a matrix with numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 to 12 assigned by row. The next section will be data types. In a program, we often wish to store different types of data. We have already seen how to store and manipulate numerical data, but there are some other possibilities, such as characters, strings, or logical information. Anyway, the three basic data types in R are the numeric, the character, and the logical. Some examples of different types of data, but let us first assign. Let's say number 5 is assigned to variable with the name x. In order to get information on that data, we can use the function class. So class of variable x will give us the result saying numeric. That means that the variable x contains numeric data, which is number 5. We could have had, let's say in y, the standard message, hello world. By executing class y, we can see that now variable y contains a character, hello world. Another example is that one, where class z can tell us that z contains logical data. And that is the end of our tutorial. You can find more details and more text with further examples and exercises on our webpage. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, practice makes perfect, so keep practicing.